6 months ago, I received my autism diagnosis at age 42. And a lot of you have had questions about the whole process of getting diagnosed. So I figured in this video, I will share with you my personal journey in case it might be of any help. I was assessed online via Prosper Health, and I had an amazing experience with them. So it made sense for me to reach out to them and see if they might be interested in partnering on this video. And to my delight, they said yes. And so I am excited to let you know that Prosper Health is the sponsor of this video, and they're the very first sponsor on this particular channel. So we will get more into why they're awesome. Let's get started. Whenever I discover something new that is of interest to me, I fall down the rabbit hole. And in this case, my children were getting assessed for autism, and it's a very drawn out process. At least it was in my case, where you have to schedule it. It may be a few months before it actually happens. Then it's like another month or two before you get the results. It's a whole thing. So while they were going through their assessments, I was listening to questions and I'm like, why does this sound so familiar? I see so much of myself in my children. But in my case, I realized that some of the things that my kids were struggling with were things that I too struggled with. And I just thought that it was normal. But it was not. So of course I did the deep dive into autism and learned as much as I could and realized that I should probably look into getting an assessment for myself. I realized more and more that they most likely have it. And I was like, if I have it and they have it, I just felt like it'd be easier to navigate it all together, that because as I'm learning about myself, I can also help them more. There could be a lot of questions that could be answered from my own childhood if indeed I was struggling with autism. So in the summer of 2025, that became my special interest. It was on my mind day and night. And the more that I learned, it's like, okay, dude, you need to go and figure out how to get assessed, because otherwise you're just going to go crazy from like hyper fixating on it. So I did bring it up to my primary care doctor that I was interested in learning more, that I felt like I could have had autism this whole time and didn't realize it, especially my kids most likely have it, and I had learned that it's hereditary and all this stuff. So I brought it up to him and he listened. I'm not saying that he was dismissive, but the questions that he asked me were like, well, what would be your purpose in finding out now? Will it change anything? Will you do anything different? Kind of made me think for a minute, like, yeah, what is my purpose in finding out now? But the more I thought about it, it just made sense for me to find out either way. Regardless, if I do have it, it's like, then it's so much easier for me to even relate with my children. I turned out okay, and I'm going to help you because at least you guys know earlier. If you look at all my other videos, I spent a good deal of my life feeling like an outcast, feeling like I didn't quite belong. Part of it too was the concern of like having to possibly pay out of pocket for things, like especially as an adult, perhaps it might not be covered by insurance, stuff like that. But to me, that wasn't that big of a concern as much as just my overall mental health in general, like getting answers or just even understanding myself better. So yeah, all this to say, I started looking into getting diagnosed. An answer wasn't readily apparent. There was like, it's mostly for kids. Who's getting assessed as adults? Like, you really have to figure out what to search. Thankfully, Prosper Health popped up. I wasn't sure if they were legit, so I did a bunch of research. I even went onto Reddit just to see what people were saying about Prosper Health, and that's actually how I found my psychologist that I ended up scheduling with, because a lot of people had great things to say about her. So once I determined Prosper Health's legit, then I decided to start the process. And it was super simple. There's like an intake form, takes like 5 minutes to sign up initially. And then based on my insurance, I got a cost estimate right away, so I wasn't surprised down the line. And I think that's super helpful. So Prosper Health does accept a lot of insurance. I believe that for 80% of their clients, they pay $80 or less out of pocket. And for around 25%, it's completely covered by insurance. So that's amazing. But yeah, you find out up front if you're going to have to pay anything out of pocket. And I think that that's super valuable. And the process is so easy to take care of that, so you can decide right away whether to proceed or not. In my particular case with my insurance plan, I needed to pay everything out of pocket. but I was okay with that because they do offer payment plans, and no matter what, I was gonna go and get assessed, guys. After filling out the initial intake forms online, they sent questionnaires to both my mom and my husband, people that know you really well in life, so that they can get more insight as to your childhood and your current circumstances. They can also send additional questionnaires out as needed, but we started with my mom and my husband, and then later on in the assessment, my best friend was also sent one. Once everyone filled out their questionnaires, I was able to schedule my appointments. I love that with Prosper, you can browse through their evaluators and really see which psychologist might be the best fit for you. In terms of the scheduling, there's two 90-minute Zoom sessions and then a third session, which is where the evaluator gives feedback and, if applicable, a formal diagnosis. I was able to get all 3 sessions scheduled within the span of 1 week, and so that was great for my impatient side. I didn't want to just talk about the logistics of everything in this video. I want to also just talk about my feelings because I feel like that's an important aspect of everything too. I was excited, if you could say excited, I was excited to have answers, but also I was very anxious because I'm over here thinking like, I've got to be autistic. Everything points to it. It was my special interest. I studied everything. Like, what if I was wrong? It was an interesting time because it's a bit hard because I just remember saying it to some of my closer friends and some closer family members, just mentioning that I was going through a process. And while overall the response was supportive, some were like, what do you mean? Like, there's no way you're autistic. You're so social. You're so this and that. Like, why are you trying to figure this out now? It kind of really messed with my head, honestly. But I just felt like I was maybe seeing things that weren't actually there, and it really made me doubt myself. But I'm gonna say that my intuition is usually pretty right about things. I don't know, it was a lot to process because at the same time, like, life was going really well, especially like I was having success on YouTube, and then this could be another turning point. Like, getting a diagnosis could be another turning point in my life. It was a lot. I think I needed to be more selective in who I confided in. That's something I would advise you guys out there. If you're still going through the process of diagnoses or you're thinking about it, it's like, these are definitely things to consider. There's gonna be a lot of like back and forth in your brain. Because then there's also like, well, what if I go through it and I'm actually not diagnosed as autistic? I think I was a bit scared that if the results came back saying I was not autistic, I would just still be left kind of looking for more answers. Or I may have thought, oh, I was just blowing things out of proportion all these years, all these decades. That was a rough week. I'm glad it was only a week. I'm so glad it was. That's why I also love Prosper Health, because it was only a week of worry and anticipation. But yeah, I was having all of these emotions throughout this whole time. And I have to say that my psychologist was so affirming. I felt so safe. I could tell her anything, and she just allowed me to feel my feelings. She just made me feel so at peace, and I did not feel anxious when I was in the actual assessments. She always reminded me that it's important for me to just share whatever could be helpful. And when I went to look through my report after everything was done, I really believe she was able to paint a full picture of how I was during childhood all the way to how I am now, and take everything into account and be able to formally diagnose me as autistic level 1. I want to just say that, at least for my experience with Prosper Health, I felt safe. It was so inclusive. I feel like anybody who may have felt dismissed throughout their life, maybe you've been struggling your whole life and you're just looking for answers, I feel like Prosper Health will help you. In terms of how I feel now, there's just a clarity that I've never had before. I did not know much about autism till I took the deep dive into it, but now that I know, it's like, it's been so much easier for me to understand events that have happened in my past, in my childhood, like why I couldn't do things a certain way, why I only did things a certain way, why I had trouble coping in certain situations. Like, there's just so much that makes sense now. And because I know, like, I'm able to accommodate myself better now at age 42. There's all these things that I do now that had I known when I was younger, where I could have already been doing those things to have helped me handle situations better, to also just know when I've had enough and when I need to remove myself from a certain place because it's overstimulating, I'm dysregulated, just to understand my meltdowns, my shutdowns. But knowing what I know now, and also my kids having their diagnosis, like there's a reason behind everything. And we can just be honest with each other. Like if we don't want to go to somewhere because there's going to be too many people, or we don't know what we will do for the whole, we're not going to go. Like, why are we going to subject ourselves to that? It's okay to say no. And so for me, I was able to get answers through Prosper Health. I want to say that if you have questions about whether you could possibly be autistic, Prosper Health was really so helpful to me on my journey. And once you get your formal diagnosis, they don't just leave you hanging. They also help you to get set up in support groups if you'd like. They have a Discord community. They have therapy services. They're not going to just be like, all right, congrats, you have autism. All right, good luck, back out into the world. No, they work with you on next steps as well. And now I have this clarity so I can live the second half of my life with more grace for myself, more grace for my children, and just being able to better navigate the challenges that come with autism. I want to say that this whole experience has helped me to heal my inner child. Like now when I parent my kids, it's me healing my inner child because I didn't know. And I'm so glad that I know now so that I can be a better parent. And so yeah, I just wanted to share all this with you. Thank you to Prosper Health for sponsoring this video. If you want to learn more, there's links below, and I will see you in the next one.